duration. Yeah, yesterday I had a question around that only. This is a meditation technique, and we are trying to be in the neutral place. But there are so many great rishis. They got a very special knowledge when they reach that stage. That is a different kind of effort is required to gain that knowledge, or when you are doing this practice, neutrality practice. I try to use this word, neutrality. That means no raga, no dvesha, disconnect. So automatically such knowledge will come.
See, when you start experimenting, the knowledge comes. So, whatever the rishis or saints, whoever got it, they all got it by experimentation. Like the other day before yesterday's experience, what I was sharing, when I started observing, only I could get that knowledge.
Yeah.
So there are two ways of doing it. One, by reading it and understanding how it works and trying it out. It's just like I read about agile and then take a certification. So then the examination says that I have passed that scaled agile framework 5.0, let's say. So I am now a agile specialist. Now that doesn't do anything except for saying that I'm eligible. When I come to the project, it is about how do I apply. So then the knowledge will get enriched, because I will be failing in certain areas, I will be doing it well in certain areas, and then I will be verifying with the document why something is working and why something is not working and all that. So after a while, it will just balance out, meaning it will become equanimous. So it becomes part of nature. Or let's take a car. So I might have read everything about the car, how to drive and all that, and then I might have watched a lot of videos. So that gives me confidence that even I can drive the car, and then I join the driving school, and that person will teach me, and after that I drive on my own after the third or fourth day. And later I get my license, and then slowly I start taking it on the road. Then I become a master of driving, so I don't have to really worry about the traffic or anything. I can be doing whatever I'm doing and still be driving. This is exactly what this is also all about. So it's nothing different. But this is totally a different science, so we might not have known how to practice it. That's the only difference. So the thing is, if we compare the worldly pursuits and happiness got from there, and if we compare that with the happiness what you get through this, the worldly happiness is conditioned and it is short-lived. And let's say I like something to eat and I eat, and there ends the matter. I want to see something and I see that, and there ends the matter, something like that. Whereas in this case, it is long lasting, more longer than this sensual happiness what I get when things happen. And one thing I don't understand in the worldly thing is that it is conditioned. I think that I will change that condition. So every one of us are in pursuit of that happiness by changing the condition. Let's say I change the market condition to achieve more results, or I try to beat the other person by doing more work or more sustained work and all of that, because there is a pursuit of happiness in the end. Whereas in this particular case, you don't have to do anything with relation to senses. Happiness itself is there, you're just unwinding it rather than rewinding it. So That's what it would be.
So knowledge will come download automatically
Yes.
based on some experiments and based on the depth of maybe meditation, right?
Yes. So first I'll start with half an hour sitting in one place, because the mind will get conditioned in that way. Then I will extend it to 1 hour. Then I start watching the breath whenever I go. And what that would do is that it would become like an awareness. And then I extend that awareness towards my whole body. Then I am in body awareness. And after that, whatever I'm touching and whatever is being felt in the mind, and whatever is seen and heard and all that, I take one by one to investigate. And that helps in reducing the shaking in the mind. After some time, the mind leaves its wrong feeling and perception. Just like, when the sound is called as vilas, and then I feel it is my name, because that is what I have been called from the beginning. So that is a wrong perception, because there is a feeling. A feeling says that it's your name. So they're calling you. Now what I do is I disengage that. It's still, I will go and meet the person. Let's say somebody at the door calls me Vilas. It's not that I'm going to sit on my chair and say that I don't know Vilas. That's not the right way. I will still go, but I will watch how the consciousness is adding up or magically bringing this together. The sound, what is heard, mind perceives as itself, and then the consciousness is able to raise the body, make it walk, and go to the door and observe the thing which has come there, because the sound came from there. And then certain discussions are happening, the person is talking, so I will start observing his face changing and all that. So that is also happening due to consciousness. Now I know that it is my consciousness and his consciousness at work. There is no person standing there to talk to me, and there is no person as myself talking without consciousness. So then there is this blissful experience in watching his or her body movement and face movement and all that. So the raga will go away, the sensual lust, because now I know all the body movement is created by the consciousness. So just like it is in my body, it is also there in that person's body. If the consciousness were not to be there, that person would be drop dead. So there is no life in that entity. So knowing that, I will not get into raga, and knowing that it is consciousness which is bringing this body up like mine, there is nothing to do a dvesha or hatredness towards that person. So neither I will like that person or I will dislike that person, and I will remain neutral, because consciousness is remaining neutral. It is bringing that person up, and it's also bringing this person up to meet each other. So there is no real person standing there as a woman or a girl or a boy or whatever it is. So this Nama and Rupa I can see. So this will give me a profound experience, meaning I can now watch mind not getting carried away, because consciousness is watching the mind. So instead of lustful desire to meet that person, I just meet that person, because there was sound, and then that created sight, and that created smell. Let's say he or she has put a perfume, or they're sweating, or whatever, there is smell. So there is sound, there is sight, and there is smell. And if they shake the hand, then there is touch. And the only thing we are not doing presently is to taste the person. So this is what I can experiment. Whether I am taking this person as a real person, then raga and dvesha is going to come. Or am I taking it as the five sense objects? This is the loka or jagat. If I see in that way, the GV itself doesn't exist, so only Ishvara exists. That means I am watching the consciousness expanding and contracting the mouth, making the shoulder move, his body shaking, there is breathing happening, and all of that. So that is the experience I'm going to get, which then will not have any kind of connotation. So you feel blissful all the time. Any further trailing questions on that?
No, I don't have.
Okay. Lata Padmashri.
No, I don't have any questions. So I think mostly we have to get in touch with our subtle intellect, and then
Yes.
things will happen on its own.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, Padmashri, you're about to say something.
I said I don't have any questions. I wanted to say.
Okay.
So, coming back to the 11th chapter, then, so this he explains the purpose, for what purpose this cosmic avatara is going to be. So he says that Kalaha Asmi Loka Kshaya Krit Pravriddha Lokan Samahartum Iha Pravritti Rite api tvam na bhavishyanti sarve ye avastitaha prati anekasau yadaha pratyanikeshu yodhaha. Okay, sorry. So he says Kalaha Asmi. So what is the thing about Kala here is that it arises and passes away. That's the true meaning of Kala. So when we look in sound, the sound arises and passes away. It's beautifully we can see that we cannot hold any sound whatsoever. Like the words I am speaking, it just goes away. It flows. Then the sight also goes away. So if somebody is coming to the eye sense door and the person moves away, and that's it. It can be any object like a tree or a bird or an insect or a person or whatever it is. And then if I were to turn from left side to right side and right side to left side, the object on the left will pass away when I turn towards right, and the right side will pass away the moment I turn towards left. So it's called Kala because it cuts away by arising and passing. And because of that, Loka Kshaya Krit Pravriddhi. So whatever gets developed, that also will then Kshaya, will decay. So if I say I establish here, that very moment that is changed. So now when the time I was born till today, the Kala is moving. That's the only thing it can do. It's a linear approach only. So if I were to say I am 49, and 49 representing just a number, but what has happened here is that the sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, with eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, that one has arisen and passed away so many millions of times. So the world is destroyed. The world of five senses and sense object keeps on getting destroyed. Lokan samahartum iha pravrittihi. Now I am engaged in destroying whatever the world is created. And this world is created in the mind. So Jivi Jagat Ishvara. The Jagat is created in the mind through sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and thoughts. So the Ishvara job is to nullify that through arising and passing away. So nobody is going to be spared. It looks as though the Prithvi, Apo, Vayu, Tejo, Akasha, all those five elements are staying together, but in real experience, it is not. It is changing every moment. And if something changes every moment, that means the loka is destroyed. Rite api tvam na bhavishyanti sarve. Even without you, none shall survive. Okay, now this might become slightly tricky that only Arjuna remains and everyone will die. No, that is not how it is. It is the consciousness will stay. The remaining things, names and forms created out of consciousness will not survive. Ye avastitaha prati anekeshu yodhaha. So
Which shloka? Which shloka is this chapter?
this is 11th,
No, shloka number
32.
32. Okay.
That is where we were supposed to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he says that none of them will survive. All the yodhas, because they are all names, will eventually perish. It's the most important shloka which talks about the purpose of the avatara is to show that sight, that is the five senses and the five sense objects, are not here to stay. They move in kala and hence get destroyed. So all that I call as myself is either I am seeing, I myself is seeing, I myself is hearing, I myself is tasting and touching and smelling and thinking, causes the mind to accept a ownership. And since mind is just an instrument, the consciousness, that is the directed consciousness here, misunderstands that it is not the directed consciousness, it is actually the undirected consciousness. But due to the attachment towards the mind, it so-called feels and gives an experience to the mind that it is feeling. And when we feel something, that will get destroyed. And when I perceive something, that will also will get destroyed. Because both are in Kala. So the Loka Kshaya Krit Pravriddaha happens. That is, whatever gets developed, eventually in every moment gets destroyed. Any questions before we move to the 33rd? Okay.
I don't have. Yeah.
Okay. So tasmat tvam uttishta yashaha labhasva jitva shatrun bhukshva rajyam samriddham maya eva eta nihitta purvam eva nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. So I'll tell you, you stand up and obtain the fame which will come on this worldly fight which is happening. Don't take it personally. You just do what you're supposed to do, and the yashas is going to happen. Jitva shatrun bhukshva rajyam samriddham. So conquer the enemies and enjoy the flourishing kingdom, what you will be getting. You need to know that I have already killed all of them. You are just doing the nimitta. Symbolically, you are doing something. So what you need to do is, you are very strong left-handed, so you can do powerful things. So he's actually bringing into the tantra, wherein the person can know what happens. So Arjuna knew something about tantra as well. So he is telling him that you know both yoga and tantra. You are knowledgeable about both, so you just be a mere instrument, symbolically working towards whatever has to be done, because everybody is already departed. There is nobody who is still alive. And that is true with everyone. As soon as we turn our head from left to right, all those on the left departs. And when we turn from right to left, all those on the right will depart. Because that is how Kala is. So the moment the consciousness moves something, the other things are gone, because it arises and passes away. So it just passes away in an instant. So there is laya all the time. So you have to be just the instrument. So then he says, Arjuna, what will happen to you? He says, Dronam cha Bhishma cha Jayadratham cha Karnam tatha anyan api yodha viran maya hatan tvam jahima vyavastitah vyatistatah yuddhasva jetasi rane sapannan. So all these brave warriors like Drona and Bhishma, Jayadratha, Karna, and all the others, Maya hatan tvam jahi ma vyathistaha. Don't fret, don't worry what would happen to them, because they have already got killed by me. Just fight and conquer your enemies in the battlefield because that is the role. Just perform the role. None of them will survive. And that's what he says. Why am I doing it? So now, 35th verse. Sanjaya will now talk about. So Sanjaya Uvacha Etat Shrutva Vachanam Keshavasya Kritanjalihi Vepamanaha Kiriti Namaskritva Bhuyaha Eva Aha Krishnam Sagad Gadam Bhitaha Pranamya. So then the Sanjaya said, having heard the speech of Keshava, the crowned person Arjuna, with palms joined and trembling, prostrated and addressed Krishna in a emotional and choked voice and bowed down to talk. So what it means is that he's already got crowned, meaning the victory is his. So in the 36th verse, Arjuna talks about the responses, what he is going to do. Arjuna Uvacha Sthane Rishikeshaha Tava Prakritya Jagat Prahrishyati Anurajyate Cha Rakshamsi Bhitani Dishaha Dravanti Sarve Namasyanti Cha Siddha Sangaha. Sthane Hrishikeshaha. It is Rishikesha is the when you see the light between two Kesha, it shines. So this is the consciousness which is shining. So he says that it is just right that I am setting a praise on you. Jagat Prakrishyanti. The world consisting of the good-minded takes great delight and rejoice in your way of experiencing. Rakshamsi bhitani dishaha dravanti. That Rakshasas filled with fear fly to all quarters. Sarve namasyanti cha siddhaha sangaha. And do they all bow down? That is the host of Siddhas who have seen the reality. So he says that the good-minded people will praise you, the bad-minded people will abuse you, but then they will get defeated. So now I see what you are here for. That means everything arises in you, and hence if the person is having a good mind will become part of you. However, if the person is of a bad mind will get devoured by you. And all the Siddhas know that correctly. And hence they bow down. So then he says, what is Brahman? This is a beautiful verse because he then says how Brahman name came into existence. Kasmat cha te na narenam mahatman gariyase brahmana api adi kartre ananta devesha jagannivasa tvam aksharam sat asat tat param yat. Kasmascha tena name nameran mahatman. And why should they not bow down to the great souled person like you? Gariyase brahmanah api brahmanah api adi kartre. Even for the great Brahma, you are the primal cause of his existence. Ananta Devesha Jagannivasa, O infinite being, the Lord of the Lords, and you are the abode of everywhere. Tvam Aksharam Sat Asat Tat Param Yat. So you are imperishable, that is beyond the manifested, which is Sat, and unmanifested, which is Asat. And Ananta Devesha Jagan Nivasa is another name for the Brahman. So basically, there are two consciousness right now as we speak. One is an individual consciousness which makes the five senses meet the five sense objects. And there is universal consciousness which is there everywhere, all pervading, all seeing, and all knowing. This limited consciousness is directed one based upon what the mind thinks it to be. So when the sight comes and mind feels what it is supposed to be and reacts accordingly. So when somebody called as wife comes in and that consciousness makes that mind aware of the wife because the mind has the memory of it. So then the wife, even though her body is changing moment by moment, I still accept to the view that she is my wife. Because that is the delusion what I have. Because the sight is moved away, but still in my mind it appears. So the consciousness has the ability to make something impossible possible. That is the wife and the husband and the children and the home and all that. So this is from Brahma level to the hell realm of existence. It's the same. So as the mind gets purified, it becomes Brahma. As the mind becomes deluded and deluded, it goes down into the hell realm of existence. But there also the consciousness exists. So what he says is that without you as consciousness, nothing in this world can be there. So they need to bow down to you because you are the one who is master of everything. And then because that you are Brahman, you are imperishable, that is Aksharam, and beyond Sat, which has taken the form, and Asat, which is yet to take the form, or manifested and unmanifested. Now, when we say taking a form, even the stone over there, or a tree over there, or a bush, or even a grass blade is caused through consciousness. So the stone wouldn't land up like that if the consciousness had not done it. Otherwise, it will become Anu, atomic state of Prithvi, Apo, Vayu, Tejo, and Akasha. They don't mingle with each other. If there is mingling, is because of Purusha or consciousness. So whether it is living or non-living, living entity happens because of the directed consciousness which enters into that existence, making the mind feel what it should feel, perceive what it should perceive, based upon various experiences it had had in the past, either reincarnated or rebirth. So the reincarnation is the avatara, and rebirth is what we generally are today. So we can be reborn into different realm of existence because the mind really meets that requirements. So the consciousness make that experience possible. So who experiences is the mind through consciousness. So the pain, the diseases, and all of it is experienced by this consciousness. So when this consciousness can take something like that, that can be all pervading and yet seemingly individual, what more is required? So he says, Tvam Adi Devaha Purushaha Puranaha Tvam Asya Vishwasya Param Nidhanam Vetta Asi Vedyam Cha Param Cha Dhama Tvaya Tatam Vishwam Ananta Rupa. So he says, how strange it is that you are able to give an individual experience as well as an universal experience. You are able to do both. The directed consciousness gives an individual experience, whereas the undirected consciousness gives a universal experience. And then, because of that, you are the primal God, because you've been there all the time, and the ancient Purusha, Puranaha Purusha, and you're there from the past, Adi. Tvam Asya Vishwasya Param Nidhanam. Of this universe, you are the supreme refuge, because what has to happen is this individual consciousness now has to merge with the supreme consciousness, and then there is no rebirth. So the only refuge that can be possible is to get into from an individual existence to universal existence. And since you are universal existence, you are the knower and things to be known and the supreme highest abode, because you are a Paramdhama. Tvaya tatam vishwam anantarupa. By the universe pervaded, you are indeed infinite forms. Because all forms have the universal consciousness which stays till the ayus of that karma ends, and the manifestation of that as an individual consciousness which arises and passes away when there is sight and sound and taste and touch and smell. So the individual jivi thinks that I am conscious. It's me who is doing it. And the universal consciousness laughs at that, because all forms are pervaded by this consciousness. So this individual consciousness has forgotten all about it. And when I see that both are same, then the happiness comes through in the 39th verse. Vayuhu Yamaha Agnihi Varunaha Shashankaha Prajapatitvam Pitamaha cha Namaha Namaha te astu Sahasra Kritva Punaha cha Bhuyaha api Namaha Namaha te. So he says, you are the Vayu, Yama, Agni, Varuna, and the moon. Prajapatihi, you are the great Prajapati and Prapitamahacha, the great grandfather for all. Namaha Namaha te astu Sahasra Kritvaha. Salutations, and once again a salutation unto you 1,000 times. So, Om Shanti, 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 something like that. One prostration as a body, one prostration as a speech, another prostration as a mind. Or we can take all the 4 levels of existence, from the gross level to the subtle level to the causal level and the causeless level, which is Brahman. And this salutation is going to continue, because when we see the individual consciousness is made out of universal consciousness, then the ego of that just ends. And that is depicted in the 40th verse. Namaha Purushat Purushastat Ataha Pratishtitah te Namaha Astu te Sarvataha Eva Sarva Ananta Virya Amita Vikramahatvam Sarvam Samapnosi Tataha Asi Sarvaha. So now he takes this salutation quite far, saying that I will salute you from the front and from the back, from every side, from every quarter, because you are infinite power and immeasurable in strength, and you pervade all, wherefrom you are everything. Okay, with that we end why this form happened, meaning why this Vishwarupa Darshana happened. So from the 10th chapter, which was Vibhuti, we got to know why this happened, why the state of the Vishwarupa or the Virat Rupa happened. Because now we can see the consciousness arising in everything, passing in everything. So it is Ananta Virya, that is infinite power, because it is able to arise in everything and pass in everything. So there is no individual at all. Any questions before we move to the next one? Will be only about thanking and asking for forgiveness.
This universal consciousness and individual consciousness. Individual consciousness is a subset. Is it borrowed from universal?
The individual consciousness is borrowed from the universal, because to sustain life, for the mind to exist, it requires the electricity. So it is borrowed from the grid. That is how we can take it.
Mm-hmm. And when this soul departs from this body, what happens to that? It will be there in the further
Yes, it will still
smaller
remain. Yes.
because only mind remains.
Yes, only the mind remains, along with, like what we discussed yesterday, the Prithvi and Apo goes away, the remaining 3 remain. So it will go in search of Prithvi and Apo again. So it will have another existence.
Mhm.
And it
So
continues.
it can expand and it can contrast, right?
Yes, so the expansion is to the Brahma realm of existence, and contraction is towards hell realm of existence.
Hmm.
So both are possible. And even in the same realm of existence, we can be having the Deva and the Brahma and the hell realm. Meaning, this seemingly human body can display all the attributes of all the beings all the time, depending upon the situation coming there.
Is it possible to borrow the consciousness from other beings? So from Guru, from Mother,
No,
and the people around?
no, consciousness is consciousness. That's all. The borrow or not to borrow is not at all a question there. So what really happens is that when I see the mother or somebody whom I like, the consciousness there gets established in an ekagrata. So the energy will increase. So I have a thinking that I have taken over the consciousness of another person. But it is not true because everything is consciousness only. There is nothing other than consciousness and five elements. So basically, when we define what is life, it is five elements and consciousness. That's all.
Okay.
Everywhere.
When this GV after death it goes to somewhere, and then is there a location for GV after going out of this body? See, when the body is there, the location of that consciousness is within that body always. And
Right.
After death, there is no body. So that means where it goes.
See, there are different lokas, and Pitru is one of the loka. And there is a waiting period. So it waits for
Is it the Pitraloka is something different than our Bhuloka? Away from Bhuloka?
No, it is never. See, the thing is, the realm of existence changes based upon the mindset. So the moment, see, now I am seeing this loka of five elements in a different pattern. Meaning to say, it never gives me an opportunity to see Earth as round when I'm sitting here. Now we have satellites and other things, so we have found an instrument to see it, but still within five senses. And we, like in the example, we don't know yet about living beings in Mars or Moon or wherever because there are no living beings there. To the eyesight, what we can see. And we are also not sure why only in Bhuloka the life happens, not happen in any other planet or any other galaxies. We know there are multitude of galaxies, but still we don't know why only in this it exists. Whereas that means the dimension with which we are seeing is very minuscule, so we are not able to see it. Whereas when the death happens for the mind, when it is disconnected from the five element the way it was programmed, then the different realm of existences open up based upon what it is. So its dimension changes. Just like the dog seeing a human being doesn't recognize it as a human being. It recognizes itself as certain things vibrating. So from the dog viewpoint, the human being looks totally different. So what we are seeing is totally different than what really it is. Because we can only see part. We can't see the full. So to answer to this question that whether the realms look similar or different, it depends upon what is the state of mind of that being at the time of death. So the world gets formed accordingly in its mind. So the sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch will be totally different for that realm of existence thing than what it was earlier. Like if we were to take the example of a dog again, the sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell are totally different in it, even though it is still sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. So its world is totally different than the human world of existence.
Okay, then the mind takes a decision to move from that realm of existence to the human body again,
Yes.
or it is a okay, mind is itself is prakriti, or is there any other influence outside of that?
No. There is.
I know that it's a karma based, but who takes the decision to enter again human body?
The mind takes the decision to enter. The consciousness only makes it happen.
So mind takes decision during that time, right?
Yes. Mind is also taking during now. It is not at that time. Right now also the mind itself is taking decision, like we are doing this satsang for the last 2.5 years. So it is 4 minds at work at present. And we could have done something else other than this. So it is mind only which is doing it. And the consciousness just blesses it, if we were to take it in that way.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, in this life, a person, husband and wife, and they have a strong desire to become husband and wife again in some other janma. So that also can happen, right? Because there's some strong desire.
Yeah. See, like before meeting, we would have met earlier, and now again we are meeting. And we don't remember what we were earlier. What if we were come to know? So who will come to know? It is not the consciousness will come to know. It is the mind which will come to know. So the memory is opened up of previous existence in the mind. So what is required to know about the past is to have a stillness in the mind. Then it gets unlocked. So the consciousness is able to bring back the experiences what one had in the earlier realm of existence or earlier lives to the mind, and the mind perceives that it is seeing its earlier life, but it is the consciousness which is bringing in the experiences of the past. It is not the mind can go and bring it from the past. So as soon as the light falls on that particular rupa, its experience also will come into foray. Let's say when I see a photograph of my son when it was 1 year old, certain things are coming into memory, and the consciousness makes that experience possible. And then my wife tells me certain things which have happened which I have forgotten, and I need to find out from that heap of images and bring it up. So who is bringing it up? It is the consciousness. To whom it is being brought? To the mind. So then I will agree with my wife that, yeah, when our son was doing this, this is what had happened. Or if I am not able to get that image at all, for whatever reason, I don't remember. So I will say to her that I don't remember. So whether it is this life or the past life or whatever it is, if the mind is still enough and the memory can take shape, then the consciousness has an ability to bring up all the things what was experienced, and even make that experience of past as experience current. So then the mind can be in the past and predict the future. So that magical thing also is done by the consciousness.
Okay.
So what we were earlier, if we want to know, then we have to still the mind. So we will come to know. But there is no guarantee that even with that stilling, definitely it is going to happen. It will happen, but when Nobody can say. Because it depends on the mind and the memory associated with that. So then what they do is they do this past life uh, regression, then hypnotism and all that, wherein the mind gets frozen and the images of the past starts to appear.
Okay, Vilas. Thank you.
No problem. So we have 2 more minutes. Don't have anything, then we can end.
Okay. Then.
Sure then. Yeah.
Okay.
See you
So-
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.